were there other things in the household or in life at the time that you saw as failures?
I think for me, it was about how I didn't want to disappoint my parents, how I wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder with my friends. I was never an A+ student.
Yeah.
My mom reminded me that the other day. Like,
What?
yeah, you are always the one who works hard.
702.
The upside of failure.
Sometimes failure is the foundation of greatest success stories.
Nontokozo, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming through on 702 Afternoons.
Thank you for having me.
Now,
Delighted.
we have to start how we start with everybody.
Yes.
You know, when you were growing up, what was failure to you?
Sure. When I was growing up, failure to me was about one academic performance. Like at that age, that's what you stress about.
Yes.
Because
our parents stressed about it.
Totally. There was components of failure that had to do with behaving in the house, being the eldest of 5. You get up in the morning, you do the house chores, you don't disappoint your parents, you are not rude in front of guests. So all of those things.
The burdens of buffets born.
Huge. And a Capricorn at that.
So let me ask, just to pause on the failure part,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
burdens of being a firstborn, do they continue into adult life?
They
where they all look at you,
do.
even though, like, guys, we're all in our 30s. Why are you still
Yeah.
looking at me?
Yeah, so they do, but in a different way. I think I get most of the looking at right now from my mother. My siblings are very independent. And in fact, sometimes they say I'm starting to sound like my mom in how
I believe them. I believe them.
And I'm like, I'm not sure if I should like that or not. Oh, God. And I'm seeing myself. I was saying to my partner the other day, I'm starting to sound like my mother. It's frightening.
It
to
happens
me.
to all of us.
Scary.
So that emphasis and the pressure you were facing, and you're saying that the situation you were in, who you were, what you represented, was related a lot also to academic performance. But were there other things in the household or in life at the time that you saw as failures?
I think for me, it was about how I didn't want to disappoint my parents, how I wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder with my friends. I was never an A+ student.
Yeah.
My mom reminded me that the other day. Like,
What?
yeah, you are always the one who works hard. I showed my university results to one of my kids, and I said to him, listen, there's hope. I got 60 in some of these things and 50 and
Yes.
Jali, just, when you barely make it to a pass. And I said to him, it comes down to how hard you work. Because, when I'm in my position right now, no one really looks at, well, let's check your certificate from
Yes.
your graduation and judge you by your grade, but you are
Yes.
judged by your character, you are judged by the quality of your leadership, you are judged by the quality of your interactions. My parents were both teachers. And we grew
And
up-
that's a different kind of pressure. Both teachers at home, and you're going to make us
Try
look
having
bad.
my dad, who's a principal, supervise maths and Afrikaans. I would just, when you just want to cry and be sick the whole hour of homework, find an excuse. But my dad wouldn't have it because for him and how he'd grown up, having a successful a kid he's put through school successfully was a big symbol of achievement. And it would naturally set me up for the success I've achieved to this point.
So let's then jump to the success. How did your not A student there, just not the A student, but hardworking, end up becoming the group chief marketing officer at Moment? I mean, group. The whole group, not
Yeah.
just one
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I've been in the profession of marketing for over 23 years, and I have worked hard and been working in a way that kind of brings me progress and elevates my delivery. When I've done career conversations with my bosses before, I remember one specific conversation I had when I was working at SA Breweries, and my boss, I worked on Brutal Fruit, and my boss said, we've got to talk about where you go next. I was like, please don't, I'm not looking for more responsibility.
Yes.
I just want to hide in this small brand where very few people will interfere.
Yes.
And then I got a promotion to Carling, the opposite of what I wanted.
Wow.
for
And
myself.
very big brand and very different market.
Like, talk about extremes.
Yes.
And I remember the shock I had on my face because, when the CEO and my boss and the marketing director at the time told me, I was like, are you sure? It's just tiny me, little me, working on little Brother Fruit, loving the femininity in the brand and the fun times I can have with this brand.
And the pink everywhere.
And the pink and the colorful nature. And now calling crazy Black Label. How am I going to fake my way through this?
Because somebody will eventually find out I'm a fraud.
Yeah, but the thing I've talked about recently when we do She Owns a Success is often in how we define what success is going to be is completely different to how your boss and the people ahead of you define your success. And in that moment, I actually asked my boss, like, why have you promoted me? And what the qualities they needed in the role and the person who was in the role were not the qualities I thought were necessary. They were qualities I had. How you collaborate, how you think strategically, how you are execution minded, how you bring suppliers beautifully together, how you are innovative, because on Brutal Fruits I had led a lot of innovation work with minimal guidance.
Yes.
And so I kind of had to learn to believe what they were seeing in me.
It's almost like you had boxed yourself.
Totally.
And very few people get the opportunity to have a boss who sees more in you than what you see in yourself.
Yeah.
But speaking of bosses, I want to talk about momentum and momentum jumping on board of the upside of failure. How does that marriage work so beautifully? Because it's such a great partnership.
So the Momentum brand is about enabling success.
Yes.
And we spend a lot of time just understanding how people define success, how different success is for each individual, and also the role of having the right advice, whether it's a financial services related conversation where you need guidance and advice, or it is about just your personal goals and your personal journey. What we've learned and realized is that there is no success without failure. There is no progress, that there is no push, that you kind of have to constantly keep refining and upping your game and pivoting and thinking about different strategies and approaches. Failure becomes the fuel we need for bigger growth than one could ever expect. Sometimes they say when you've had things easy in life, you don't have the grit it takes when you step outside. So I think for us as a brand, it's important that we are holistic in the conversations we're having about success. We would be completely, and there's a lot of mental wellness issues that we are all dealing with, and kind of feelings of being inadequate, or you want to hide, and my financial matters are not together. The thing is, if they're not together and you are having that realization, that's the most incredible first step, is to have that realization. And then the next thing becomes, what do I do now that I know? Because sometimes by not acknowledging that you are needing to address this component of your life that is not together like it should, by denying yourself the opportunity to address that, you are setting yourself even worse than what you would with getting the help and seeking the advice.
And I think you touched on something so important, the part about how we define success, because many of us grew up in homes where success was academic related. And why was it academic related? Because we had to prepare you to be career successful. Why did we have to prepare you to be career successful? So you could be financially successful. So everything was very one-dimensional if we look at it. And now, as you say, there are people who are able to say, actually, I need to take a step back because I need to focus on my home life balance, or I need to focus on being a parent, or I need to focus on resting well. And I had to realize, actually, like, it's great to have a successful career, but I don't know how to rest. Like, that department of resting and wellness and self-care was getting a 20%, which is a failure.
Which kind of contributes to an increased feeling of failure. Because when you sit with your peers, your friends, your kids, your family, your professional counterparts, you're like, how am I not paying off my debt like they are?
Yes. And I think that is also the worst poison of all, is the comparison poison. So I want to bring that back to, when we say success is a science, what would you share with the listeners in terms of what is the science that they need to figure out for themselves? Because when people think science, it could mean chemistry, 10% this, 20%, but it's not the same for everybody, because for some people, they genuinely have zero interest in being the money maker. They're like, listen, the fact that I could not get a cooked meal on the table for my kid, I failed. And for other people, they're like, the fact that I didn't get that promotion, that one that you were saying, why me? That one, that is like the ultimate failure. So how should one go about exploring the science to their own success?
I think so. So I want to just open up this idea of success and money. The thing is, if you're not really that ambitious with getting your financial matters in place, I feel for me, it affects how I show up as a person. If my financial state of being is not in a good place, even when I go to Christmas with my family, I'm always, when you are just annoyed because people want more things from the grocery
and
stores
our budget,
and you didn't plan for it, or your kids are asking for extramural toys. So I have found for myself that it is as important to look after my financial matters as it is to look after my spiritual side as well as my psychological side. For me, the science is around, for example, in your career, you need to have advisors, you need to have sponsors, you need to have mentors, you need to have coaches, you even need to have thinking partners. All of these 5 types of roles in that I've mentioned, I've experienced the benefit of. And in my career, I have had extremes of success and extremes of pain and failure. And one of them was getting dismissed in one of my previous jobs. And where you are at a peak of your success, at least as you're experiencing it, and you kind of trip and fail and you get such a big consequence, it's like self-esteem trashing. And to have walked the journey of getting back on the horse, of picking myself up from the floor and walking corridors knowing, yo, by clever. They are like, yes, this one got dismissed. And they don't know your personal story. They don't know your value system. They don't know. So I had to work with sponsors. I had to work with mentors. I've had to work with coaches and be truthful and vulnerable about how I failed and what I've learned from that failure. Because I think failure becomes a gift. For me, I've seen it. Because even now, I don't want to let myself down. And I don't want to let my family down. I don't want to let the people around me down. And I take so much pride if I am getting up in the morning. I mean, I'm watching a show called Stats on Netflix. And there's a section where they talk about just putting one pearl on a string. Just get up in the morning and do one action. And already give yourself credit for having the bravery to get up and execute on that one action. So in the space of career, surrounding yourself with people and the idea of having thinking partners, even when I was having moments where I was feeling these imposter syndrome and negative voices and people's eyes, they look at you and you're thinking, Jesus, they're like thinking your eyebrow is not shaped straight or something. And to hear somebody say, no, don't worry, you are doing okay. If you're having issues and these doubtful thoughts in your head about where you are and your credibility, let's address it in a structured way.
So I want to go back, before I touch on talking about that particular failure, I want to go back to something important you mentioned about getting your financial matters for yourself. Because the reality, for myself, coming from an industry where nothing is guaranteed any moment, that thing will bring you peace of mind. And many people are having that conversation where it's like, yes, we acknowledge money can't buy you happiness. We have people living these extravagant lifestyles. They have access to everything, but doesn't mean they're happy. However, we all know that life is a little bit easier when you're not stressing or worried about money. And I think many people can relate to that. I don't think it's just a you thing. I'm sitting listening to it. I'm like, if I could just know my child's school fees are paid for the rest of his life, I'll sleep peacefully. That peace of mind. But I want to come to the part about what you shared about being dismissed, because how? A student, promotion, castle.
No, remember, I'm a C student. Dear sometimes. My dear was like,
not a student, not a student. And then you went, and then promotion. So tell us the story. And I think it's so important because there are people listening who are like, I just got dismissed, or I just got and I don't see myself ever even having the energy to try again?
Yeah. I felt for me, number one, that I'm going to talk about the show again on Netflix where they talk about squeezing lemon juice out of every lemon. And each situation in your life, whether you break your nail or you scratch your car or you don't comply in ways that you didn't realize you were not complying to policy, etc., all of those things, there's got to be a lesson that you learned. I think for me, what was important was, one, my faith. I remember my helper saying, the other failure, being divorced and ending of a marriage when you're a parent and you've got kids, and you know how divorce is perceived, regardless of the reason.
And Ofeiti as the woman, Ofeiti.
Yes, but I think for me, it was the recognition of the fact that I am here now. There's no point denying it. There is a whole thing about don't avoid your pain. I had watched Soulful Sundays with Oprah, and there was a conversation about pain is there to teach us something about ourselves. It is there to bring a lesson. They say what you never learn, the universe keeps bringing back.
It points to exactly where you need to address things, to say, you thought this was finished. It's still there.
It's still there. And my mentor was like, just go and reflect on how did you get to this situation and what would you learn from the situation. I think the third part is, let's not carry shame. I think for me, when we realize that there is not one person who has it all together and life is not perfect. In the Asian cultures, there's a whole thing about appreciating a crack in a vase and not wishing it away, and how the scar is there and
I think
it is a part of your narrative. It's a Japanese, yes. There's a term for it, which I
can't remember, but it speaks about when the glass or the bowl or whatever has broken, and then they use gold to put it back together, and it actually becomes a better vase or a better bowl. Yes.
So I take that scar, I take that pain, I recognize my role in it, because I think a lot, the narrative about why we fail is attached to what other people around us have done wrong. How, you needed people to stand up for you and they never did. But for me, I had to kind of bring it back to me and really just own the failure, own the pain, be frank with the people around me that I trust to give me guidance, to give me support. My family and my friends, my mentors. I've got incredible women mentors in my life who have also had disappointments and failures in their own careers. And I think that's been the biggest gain here. And I think also the one other part is to learn that when other people are having these difficult or challenging experiences in their lives, one thing that gives me joy is to share that I've been there too. I've been there too. You're not alone. Remove the headline of shame. Focus on the headline of learning experience.
In terms of momentum, how is momentum helping its customers deal with their own failures? So many people have gone through a tough time over the past couple of years. There are individuals who are really struggling to the point that they don't answer anybody's phones. They see momentum calling, they don't answer. How are you guys helping your customers?
Yeah, so we are here to help as a group, because our group is Momentum Metropolitan, and in both businesses, we are always encouraging our clients to phone and make payment plans. Do you know, the biggest thing is we're all just in denial. If your bank balance is low, guys, it's not going to miraculously fill up again. And when you kick the can down the road, you're like, I know Telkom debit orders and Momentum and Metropolitan debit orders are coming. And somehow miraculously, I must just not look in that issue. And you get yourself into a worse state of existence financially than being upfront and making plans. The second part is, in any financial advice, this idea of having a budget, reviewing it regularly is important. What we have found is that people who are in the more affluent spaces of range of income, they are not, let me give you an example. The lady who helps us in our home knows exactly how much she needs for petrol, exactly how much she needs for electricity,
access to credit,
debts and credit cards and borrowing from friends and family. But you find she knows, like, I need X for my transport, I need X for my groceries, I need X for, and she manages.
She spends X.
My mom is retired. In fact, sometimes we phone mom to borrow money. Isn't that just sad?
Mama took a pension. Hey, phonela mama for pension.
It's a terrible state of existence. And actually, that's what I'm saying. I think the tool of making a budget, the tool of reviewing your budget regularly, and this person, there are human beings, guys, who are called financial advisors. They studied, They wrote crazy exams. They are so equipped to support us.
But you have to be honest.
You have to
and
be
open
honest,
with
and
them.
you've got to reach out to them. And people sometimes see financial advisors as wanting to push product. They don't want to push product. They are there to advise you and to make sustainable recommendations that slowly can help you climb out of the hole. And you don't have to feel alone in that way.
Very quickly, the WhatsApps that have been coming through. Lebo, your guest story is amazing. Her frankness and generosity to share her life experiences. Love this, especially for a young woman going through corporate and life in general. Another one says, what a great interview with my boss lady, Nonto. She is a powerhouse, an authentic leader, and astute marketing professional from Tseho. And then Cynthia says, the Japanese art you were looking for, it's called kintsugi. Kintsugi. Because we need to remember that when something breaks, it doesn't mean it's less valuable.
You
can put it together.
Now.
You can put it together and it can be
it's
even
just
better.
Perfect.
I can't thank you enough for coming through and just for sharing with us, obviously for partnering with 702 for this upside of failure. I mean, we've had such phenomenal guests coming through. And when you're at the top of the list with your story, but also just for what you're doing with the brand and what it stands for. The next time I go to the bottle store, I'm going to look at those 2 drinks and just smile at myself. To be like, she did that. She went from this to that, thinking she couldn't. So I think you should keep those 2 things in your house, just to remind yourself, whenever I feel bad, I move from there to there. Nontokozo Madonsela, Group Chief Marketing Officer at Momentum. Thank you so much for coming through to us and just to chat on this amazing upside of failure.
702.
The upside of failure.
Sometimes failure is the foundation of greatest success stories.